Hi there guys, and welcome to my channel. My name is Bryndís, and in today's video I'm gonna be talking about my February TBR, what I want to read in February. I read so much in January, which will be coming, we'll be talking about that in a video in a couple of days, but so I think February is going to be a little bit slower in regards to reading, mostly because there are two really large books that I want to read. So I put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 books on my TBR, but I'm not necessarily sure that I will be able to read all of them. We'll see. Two of these books are Icelandic, so I'm gonna talk about them in the end of the video. So I will start with kind of English speaking books, just in case, because I'm assuming that most of my audiences are gonna be non-Icelandic, although the books that I'm reading, at least one of them, has been translated to English. Anyway, I will talk about the Icelandic books in the end of the video, but let's talk about the books that I want to read in February. So the first book that I am going to be reading in February, I actually already started it in January, but I'm just in the first couple of chapters, and that is Shirley by Charlotte Bronte, first published in 1849. So it's obviously a classic. One of my goals for the year is to read all of the 7 novels by the Bronte sisters, and this is novel number 2 that I'm reading. So it's basically, it follows 2 women who are born into very different circumstances in a kind of I think a smaller town in the UK or in England, and it's really like following a little bit the industrial revolution and the impact that has, and and there's some love, romance that is not really, that is kind of frowned upon by the father, and so like I said, I'm only in a couple of two chapters, and I'm already loving it. Like, I loved Charlotte Bronte's style. I read Jane Eyre in January, and she just writes in such a fun and interesting way that I really love it. So, and I love how she talks to the reader and like involves you in the story that is going on. So you're almost like standing, like watching people, something like a ghost in the corner, and the tone of the book so far is really fun, and it's quite sarcastic, I think. I don't know, or ironic, I'm not sure, but I look forward to finishing the book. It's quite short, so no, it's quite short. No, actually it's not that short, it's just like a book, but it's, so it's I look forward to reading it for sure. And then connected to my goal to read all the Bronte sisters is, I'm curious about their life, and so I decided I wanted to maybe read a biography of them, or something about one of them or all of them, or hopefully I'm gonna read about all of them, but even if it's one at a time, or whatever. But I found a Charlotte Bronte biography written by Elizabeth Gaskell, who was a contemporary of Charlotte, and I think they knew each other. They may even have been friends, if I'm not mistaken. But so Elizabeth Gaskell wrote a biography of Charlotte Bronte, and I have it here on my Kindle. And so I really look forward to reading that, and that's gonna be book number 2 for February. My kind of biggest book that I'm gonna be reading, the main book really, in February, is going to be Iron Gold by Pierce Brown. book number 4 in the Red Rising saga. I've already read the first 3, obviously. I finished book number 3 in December, and I absolutely loved it. But it did take me the entire month. It's a huge book, and I'm listening to it on audio, and it is huge. It's like really long and like very intense, so I can't always listen to it for too long at a time, because then I kind of lose focus. It's a sci-fi, and yeah. So in book 4, I don't want to give a lot away, but things have changed, and we're following a girl who is kind of going through all the changes. I don't want to say too much. I mean, the synopsis, or the kind of what I can see here is: an ex-soldier broken by grief is forced to steal the most valuable thing in the galaxy or pay with his life. And Lysander O'Loon, the heir in exile to the sovereign, wanders the stars with his mentor Cassius, haunted by the loss of the world that Darrow transformed, and dreaming of what will rise from its ashes. Very exciting! I'm also just really excited to keep watching what Darrow and his journey, and like what happened after a very exciting book number 3. So that will be fun. But like I said, it's gonna take me a while because it's a big book. So the next book that I want to talk about, I actually discovered when I was going through my Kindle and like buying the biography of Charlotte Bronte, and I was kind of going through the books that I have. I have a lot of books on my Kindle, and I realized that I have this book. It's called A Brave Start, and it is the first book in the series Across the Pond by Andrea J. Severson, and it was published in 2019. And I bought it in, I don't remember exactly when, but definitely in like at some point last year, and I started reading it, and I love it. It takes place in London, and but I kind of something, I don't know why, but I stopped reading it, and I haven't finished. So I want to finish it this month, because I always say that I don't like romance. I'm a cynical old woman, but that's not true. I've realized, because I have been reading, and I will talk about it in my what I read in January video, been reading some books with really beautiful love stories, and I love it. So it's not that I don't like romance. I think there's just a certain type of romance that I don't like. But I like the romance where, even if the romance plot is the main plot, that's fine, but there needs to be something else going on as well. And I really like this book because it takes place in London. London is my home, the home of my heart. I've been there several times, and I always love it, and it's a great city. And just so a lot of the setting is like are places that I know, that I've been to. So I really like that, and it's just a very sweet romance, and that isn't necessarily too demanding, which is just what I need when I'm reading I'm reading a classics and a biography and like a huge sci-fi fantasy series book. It's really good to have something that is just kind of fun and easy, but also engaging and interesting. So I'm gonna finish. I'm according to my Kindle, I'm on chapter 7, so I'm still only quite early on in the book, but I remember liking it. I think I'm probably going to have to scan through the first chapters again just to remind myself, but I really like the main character Eleanor, and yeah, it's a fun little book, and I want to continue reading it. And interestingly, you can buy it on Amazon, but it's a self-published book, so that's also nice to be able to support indie authors. And then I have 2 thrillers, or I hope it's a thriller. I'm pretty sure that one of them is a thriller, and I have the Icelandic translation in the paperback. Got it for Christmas, but it's called, here is the picture somewhere. It's called A Stranger in the House by Shari Lapena, and she also wrote, she's written several thrillers, like Everyone Here Is Lying, I think is her latest book, but this one was published in 2017, and it is tells the story of Tom and Karen, who are a couple who at first seem normal and lead a quiet life with few troubles. One day, Tom arrives home to a bizarre scene. Dinner seems to be half finished, but there is no sign of Karen, even though her belongings are still at home. Ooh, very, very intriguing. But yeah, so I'm gonna read this one. It's gonna be one of my thrillers for the month, and I really look forward to it. I love a good psychological thriller, so I really hope it's good. It's gotten about, I think the average rating on Goodreads is 3.7 stars, so it's, but it's fine for a thriller. I think that's actually completely adequate rating. Yeah, so I look forward to reading that. The other thriller that I want to read is, I'm going to listen to it as an audiobook, and it is Silent Scream. It is the first book of the D.I. Stone? Yeah, D.I. Kim Stone by Angela Marsons. And yeah, so it's, there's a innocent life had been taken, but the pact had been made. The secrets would be buried, bound in blood. And then there's D.I. Kim Stone, who is, chasing this twisted individual whose killing spree spans decades. So serial killers, D.I. Stone, and so it's really interesting. I really hope that it's gonna be fun. I'm really looking for a series with detectives. I've finished a couple of those in the last few years, and there's a hole in my life. I need detective stories that go on for that you can follow the same detective for several books. So I'm hoping that this one might be it, because there was one that I read in January that I will talk about in that video, where I did not like several things about that. It was the first book as well in a series, or with a female DI, but hopefully this one will check the box. And then there are two books, Icelandic books, that I want to read. One of them is this chunky book called Iceland's Bell, you can see here in the picture, by Halldór Laxness. This is a historical novel. It was published in 1943 to 46, in 3 parts, but it's been just put into, now it's just one book. And it takes place in the 18th century in Iceland and in Denmark, in Copenhagen. And it paints a tragic and ironic picture of the terrible state of the Icelandic populace in the 18th century. Yeah, so it's in 3 parts, but there are main characters in each of the parts. There is this farmer who has some legal problems with the authorities. There is this female character called Snæfríður, who is, literal translation is Snow Beautiful. So that is actually a name in Iceland. Snow Beautiful. But yeah, so and her so she's in love with this antiquarian, or a manuscript collector, who is not really interested in her. He's already married, and he's a drunkard and not a good person. And anyway, and then there is, third part takes place mostly in Copenhagen, and about this manuscript collector and the fate of his big manuscript collection. He was collecting Icelandic sagas manuscripts, and then there was a huge fire in Copenhagen in 1720 something, and a lot of his work was burned to the ground. And so I'm really looking forward to reading this. I did read in January, I read the play that he adapted from this novel, and I've known this novel for like years and years, like ever, and so I've known the plot. So I kind of wish I had read the novel first and then the play, but then I'm sure the play would have been boring because it wouldn't have been exciting. But there's so much more in the novel than in the play. But anyway, I look forward to reading this book. And kind of connected to that is this book. This is a biography of Árni Magnússon, who is, you can see it maybe better here, who is the manuscript collector talked about in this book. And he was a real person, and he was born like in 1660s, something like that, 1660 something, and he basically went around the entire Iceland and collected these manuscripts that were often written on calf skin, and kind of rescued them to a degree, and then took them to Copenhagen where he lived, and was working, like writing them, like copying them and preparing some of them for print and stuff like that. So I'm reading his, so I'm not that far in his, this is the first half. So I'm reading his biography. I thought it would be fun to kind of know a little bit more about him and the events of his life that have been talked about in the novel. So yeah, it's actually very interesting. I love these type of historical books that are talking about, and like they're talking about his work, obviously, but also you kind of get a glimpse into the daily life of people in like late 17th century, early 18th century, and they were just doing the same things that we were doing, basically. And it's just funny. They were talking about these, they would like make not poems, but little rhymes, making fun of each other, and it is just it's really interesting. And I'm a biography type of person anyway, so I'm hoping that I will finish this book in February. But I read maybe a couple of chapters a day or something like that, because it's it can get there are a lot of numbers and like facts that he talks about, the author of this book. Interestingly, the author of this book is a professor of history at the University of Iceland. He was actually my teacher. When I took my first bachelor's degree was in English literature and language and literature, but I minored in history, and he was one of my teachers. So that's kind of cool to see like him there. And here he is. So. But anyway, yeah, so that's that. So those are the books that I want to read in February. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It's quite a lot. I mean, I think 3 of them are like probably easy fast read. Yeah, we'll see. It'll be exciting to see how far I go if I manage to finish all of them. I read a lot in January because I was on a social media ban. So there was no social media scrolling throughout the month. So all I did was read instead. So I read a lot. I'm not gonna do that. I'm not gonna have the social media ban in February. So we'll see if February is 2 days shorter this year than January. But it's a challenge, and we'll see if I manage it, but it's fine. I don't mind like taking books with me from month to month. That's fine, especially if they're really long and kind of dense, like some of these books are. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed, and I would love to hear about your February TBR in the comments. And yeah, thank you for watching. See you next time. Bye bye.